The Lore Network. Nerds, geeks, and dweebs alike love their particular fandom and often challenge those around them to resist the temptation to become fans themselves. Welcome to Resist This, a podcast put on by Focus Fire Chat, where I, green-eyed music lover, and Blue Crew 86. Blue True! He's so true blue. Challenge each other to consume various books, TV shows, and any other fandoms inspiring content, then discuss the ups, downs, insides, and outs. This episode, if you can't tell since I'm doing the introduction, is one of my fandoms. We're gonna I basically have been talking about Critical Role nonstop for the last couple of months, and because Critical Role is hundreds,
she made me watch
hours.
Everything, guys. It was torture.
Yep, he did it all within a few weeks too. No, I
Clockwork Orange style.
God, no, I actually just had him watch The Adventures of the Darrington Brigade, which is a one-shot that Critical Role did based off of one character from the original campaign towards the end of the campaign and what happened to him after that first campaign ended. It is a live recording in front of an audience, and it is very Scooby-Doo in some ways.
It's so Scooby-Doo.
It's great, so though. It's great,
I mean,
though.
to be fair, that is an accurate summary of that group in general. Mm-hmm. Like, also, it was in Austin, I think, was where they were recording it live, which was entertaining to begin with. It was 4.5 hour campaign, which, I mean, for a D&D campaign, actually, I guess it's a one shot. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, still, for a D&D adventure, that's about average. I mean, like, yeah. that's a decent adventure. And they actually, I think they had two major fights inside of it. So, like, it was pretty good. With Critical Role being the group that it is, like, it always is a step above what everything, what your, like, normal tabletop is.
Sure.
Because all of them are voice actors, and so they're able to do that one more step into immersion. Like, God, Travis's macaroni freaking like just killed me. Like, it's just like, especially the final fight where he kept rolling his strength checks. Like, the smack talk that he gave in the Stitch voice was just the best ever. Plus the fact that it's Travis. So Travis is like this massive human being, and he's talking like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. Yeah, and he's playing a character who's like 2.5 feet, 3 feet tall.
Yeah, so. He's playing a gnome. He's also, like, his most common voice acting gigs, he's always a bass. He's always this low, rumbling voice. And that's what his natural speaking voice is.
Yeah, he's Fred in Halo 5. Uh-huh. So yeah, he's got that. I mean, he definitely, like, when he wasn't speaking in character, it was very disconcerting because it was like, well, speaking in character was disconcerting, but then, like, when he spoke in his natural voice after you got used to him being in character, it was like, whoa, what's going on? Whereas what is it? Is it Taliesin?
Taliesin.
The owlbear, he was doing the exact opposite. Like, he was speaking like Batman. It's just like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying.
Yeah. Would you say that's your favorite part, is the fact that they were basically taking these pop culture references and smashing them into the D&D world? Like, that's what a lot of them were.
It was so bad. Like, it was just like, I mean, it was so hilarious watching them do different stuff like that. And it's always refreshing, because I don't watch Critical Role. That's not something that entertains me. In, like, I don't know how to say that. It's entertaining, but I don't, like, sit down and watch. You don't want to
devote that much time to it.
Yeah, it's like a TV show. It's sure that I'm like, I can sit down and watch one, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. but then I have no desire to sit down and watch like the whole series.
I like it's in podcast form. That's how I consume it primarily.
I've tried to listen to them in podcast form, and I'll be honest, it's even worse for me because the they are so animated that like you lose. I personally think you lose like 60% of the value of their interactions on just audio.
I can see that for certain situations.
Yeah, and so and I mean, yeah, but what was I gonna say? But like they do one of the things that I love about that entire group, like that actually Geek and Sundry really kind of encompass this whole thing because they're part of Geek and Sundry now.
They're not anymore.
They're not anymore.
No, so they had actually branched out and they have started their own studio.
Oh, okay.
They're actually developing a animated series.
Based
off of the original campaign, and there's a few other things that are in the works.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. But they were originally Geek and Sundry, part of them.
And Geek and Sundry has always done this thing where they let people be like 100% themselves. And they promote it. Like they actually encourage them to do. And Critical Role was always one of the forerunners, I think, or I always got the feeling that the Critical Role group was always the ones that they were unapologetically, they found what they found funny and they did what they wanted to do. Like, you know, and that was kind of like when I watch it, that's the part that I hone in on, because that's what reminds me of when we did tabletop games, you know, back in the day, was we would do stupid nonsense all the time. Oh yeah. And it's like you don't plan on it. Like you just literally do it. And this particular one shot was, I think you were telling me this is like the one shots are basically the way that that Matt gets back at them and they get back at Matt from during campaign stuff.
Yeah, very much so.
It's like Travis and Liam were the two that were just oh my gosh, they were just constantly causing problems. And it was hilarious because I can see the group that I played with. I see our group in that group. Like that is exactly what we did all the time with our DMs. And I mean, it's refreshing because you can, there's a point where like a lot of people try to do like this like forced thing where they try to be either funny or they try to tap into that nerd culture type concept. And there is none of that. Like this is not, like you can tell it's not really forced. Right. Like they all are really good friends with each other, or at least friends with each other.
Nerds.
And they all know the like intricacies of what they're referring to, which is really cool to see. I really appreciated that.
What was the thing that you liked the least about this particular one shot? Or if you want to do it, your general critic, I mean, you were kind of like, it's just too long and too much to devote to. But is there
my thing with, I don't know, like it's one of those things where it's like, it's the same reason that I don't really tabletop anymore. It's like, it's the time. I am a person who, when I did tabletop, I was a skill monkey. So like I would design characters that game the system, using the system to benefit for stuff. And
so like Laura's character with the monk and how overpowered she was when
I love monks.
In the battle
I absolutely love monks, and I love the fact that was shown so brightly with Laura, who had no idea what she was doing and still destroyed things. Like I was like, Liam was sitting at that other end. He's like, and there's the demonstration. Like I'm like, yep, 100%. Well, and then when what was the other one, the combo of the rogue barbarian, when they finally, like when that came out, everyone was like, wait, you could do that? And it's like, oh yeah, and Travis, I think, was the one that was like, oh
yeah. Well, Travis played the original barbarian back in the first campaign.
That was Grog, right? Yeah,
yeah. So it's funny to watch the group play these characters, because you mentioned that they aren't necessarily playing ones that they normally do. In the first campaign, Travis Willingham played Grog, a barbarian. In the second campaign, he's playing more of a sorcerer kind of character. And in this one, he's playing a cleric. What was the other one?
Oh, in the standalone?
Yes, in the standalone.
Yeah, in the standalone, he's playing a gnome war cleric.
Yeah, he's a cleric because he has...
hilarious because he does not understand spells.
No.
And spends an inordinate amount of time cursing spell systems.
Well, I mean, it's just like Marisha.
Oh, no, like...
Marisha Ray has no idea how to play a bard, which is what she is and does.
Because that was what... Sam, I think,
had originally played in the first campaign.
The entire time you see, like, I did like how, I mean, this is 100% what happens at a tabletop session.
Yeah,
it's like the characters, or the not the characters, the players who know what's going on with, you know, a particular type of character will constantly be sidebarring with, you know, the other character or the other players who are trying to do something. And they even, like in this one, actually, they even got into an argument with Matt on stage. Like, I think it was Laura or it wasn't an argument, but Laura, like...
The rules lawyering.
Like, she passively made a comment about, well, actually, blah, blah, blah. And Matt, like, nope. Like, just like, pulls out, like, all these books. And it was like, I'm like, yep, that's 100%. Right there, that is tabletop right there,
and that happens in the normal campaign recordings too. Like,
oh, does it? Okay,
yeah. It's not like they pull it out all the time, but maybe once or twice, especially during battles.
I can see that.
Every once in a while, you'll have to pull it out for a particular type of cantrip or spell that's not a battle-based one. But Liam is a really, really good DM. Liam O'Brien. Sam has DM'd as well, and then Matt are all I would say, the most knowledgeable and well-rounded of the critters.
My understanding, I was talking to my brother-in-law tonight about actually we were over there eating dinner, and I mentioned that we were doing this recording, and he was like, oh yeah, you need to watch, and he said that there was another one where... I'm like, I kind of want to watch it just because of the premise of it. But apparently Travis DM'd a standalone as Grog. As Grog.
Oh, gosh, that one.
He's like, no. Like, you don't understand. It's not Travis. Like, Grog in character is DMing. It's
yeah, they've all... pretty much all have DM'd at least a one-shot. I think Ashley has not yet, and I'm not sure if Marisha has, but I'm pretty sure the rest of them have. And there's a really good, like, Western horror one-shot. They did a Doom Eternal one-shot. Like, they've done some really cool themes and some really cool stories that each grouping... I think Liam did a Christmas-themed one year. It's just... They're a fun group. They're creative, and it's exactly what you would expect a D&D group to do. It's like, our favorite game right now is Destiny. We're going to do a Destiny-themed one. They haven't done a Destiny-themed one. But
I'm surprised. I'm both surprised and not surprised, since most of them actually...
Matt has. Matt is human male.
I'm trying to think. I thought that another one of theirs was, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think so.
There's more from Firefly in Destiny than anything.
They're trying. I think, what was it, Christine?
Gotta catch them all. No, these guys. There's quite a few of them who have been in The Last of Us. Ashley played a main character in there, as well as Laura.
Laura and Travis are in Halo 5.
Liam has done a lot of anime, as has Matt, who also did Matt Mercer. He did McCree. Matt's probably the most triple title experience besides Laura.
Yeah, he definitely has the most. He's one of the more prolific ones. I think Matt has also the best stories about trolling people, especially with Overwatch. He's watching that. He's the one that jumps into public chats and starts dropping his "It's high noon." Everyone's like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, Sam has done quite a bit too. I don't remember. I haven't skimmed through his IMDb as much.
Sam, I think, was more like voiceover, like TV voiceover. Yeah. I think.
Well, same with Travis has done quite a few video games too. Not as much as some of them. Ashley's done live action.
Yeah, I was about to say Ashley she's in God, what was it? There was a TV show that she was in that I was just watching, and she actually did really good, or really like she shows up and I was like, whoa, and she actually has
she plays a nerd too.
Yeah, she has cameos from Critical Role on set. Like, it was really cool.
They had actually kind of tried to force her hand into making her do that.
Oh, did they? I mean, that makes perfect sense, but that's funny.
Let's see here. She's in Blind Spot. She's in Avengers.
Blind Spot, that was the one it was.
Well, that's not the TV show. That's a movie. I guess it is a TV show.
It's a TV show, yes, because that's the one where she
as Patterson.
She shows up with the coffee mug constantly.
Yeah. Let's see here. And then Taliesin Jaffe is probably, like, besides Marisha is technically, she's done really only Critical Role. She hasn't done she's done maybe one or two things outside of Critical Role, but she is their creative director and has been
she?
Since.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah, she's been the creative director since at least a bit before they left Geek and Sundry. And so all of their content on their channel, which is a lot of content.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's how many hundreds of hours of...
And that's not just the tabletop stuff. They do other shows, too. They do a Between the Sheets show. They do a Talks Machina. The Between the Sheets is like an interview show where they go into their past.
There's some really funny ones on. I've seen clips from that.
I think my favorite content that they came out with recently is Narrative Telephone, where it's so good.
Josh keeps sending me the videos of it.
They're so good. Like, you don't have to watch all of them. I just like watching like just half of it. It's just, it makes you happy. But
my takeaway is that Sam is a sadistic storyteller.
No, watch Matt Mercer's second go around. Matt demolishes them. Like they're all they're pulling out all the stops to try to throw each other off for telephone. All these different voices, singing, multiple stories within stories.
Yeah.
Like,
Matt,
they're doing all sorts of things.
Matt is ridiculous. Well, and that was the other thing, like, you see really with this one shot too, is like Matt's always impressed me because as the DM, he has to like snap in and out of characters, like all different characters on the fly, which is just, it's impressive in general. But like, all of them have such good, they all have their own way of acting that shines very well.
Yes.
With this particular approach. And it makes watching it definitely is one of those things where I understand why people enjoy watching this so much, is because they do live action storytelling very well.
Yes.
Even with the story arc of Duck Thulu or Quack Thulu, which is the most ridiculous big bad, but
it makes you so happy, though. Like, it's great. I think that is that, would you say, like, one of your favorite little characters in here?
I think that, like, Quack Thulu, like, the build up, like the
Lionel,
who apparently is also from the campaign. I was looking at some of it. He's apparently elsewhere, but like. Yeah, his whole, like, the whole little tidbits of his totem, like, sprinkled in and all this stuff, and, like, how he was, like, what was it they were going...
Do you dream and duck?
Do you dream and duck? I'll teach you how to speak. Hey, Lionel, how do you say I'm sorry?
Yeah, and just Matt has no fear of going into animal noises.
None. Like, absolutely, without hesitation. But, like, just, I mean, like, his like the hints that he sprinkles in to the Quack Thulu, which was just the best part was the map that he made the miniature of like it's I don't even know what is it, so like it's like he
took a rubber ducky. He took an angry rubber ducky, painted it green, attached, you can see the attachments in like a blow up of the image, attached tentacles to it and put the little like tentacles coming out of its chin with red eyes, and it is way bigger than the rest of them because it is so a rubber ducky. But it's so funny. Matt
when he pulled that out, like the great thing is, like, you can tell that the rest of them also have not seen any of this, like, because they all react the same. They're like, what?
Yep. What did you think about kind of their improvisation style, like their storytelling style for this in particular?
I personally, I don't like it. But that's just personally, I don't like that style. As far as their presentation of that style, I think they are second to none. I think that they do an amazing job from a skill point. It's hard for me to connect with that particular type of storytelling because that's not the way my brain works. Which is probably why I can enjoy it watching it, but that's why I don't have like this inclination to sit down, like, what is it, every Thursday?
I have a question for you that kind of relates to this. Have you watched any other of the live, like Chris Perkins D&D group, Acquisitions Incorporated, or
no? There's
actually quite a few out there who have done these live tabletops. I have watched quite a bit of both Acquisitions Incorporated and Critical Role now, and the storytelling style between those two, not only DMs between Chris Perkins and Matt Mercer, are very, very different. Matt tends to be, not necessarily in this one shot, this is not a good example of it, but he's very artistic in his descriptions. I've seen a few of like the normal early Critical Role series. And like I mean, like I said, like the reason I don't like, it's not that I don't like it, the reason I don't feel drawn to it is literally my personal thing. Like from a skill point, and I like from other people, I have encouraged people to watch Critical Role because I recognize that these guys, they put a just inordinate amount of time into preparing for this, especially Matt. And you can tell with his maps, with his miniatures and all that. But on skill alone, like, you know, even though you'll see them make fun of each other for not knowing, you know, rules or stuff like that, that's normal tabletop banter that you're never not going to see. But that being said, they all know what they're doing. Like it's very clear acting, but also just like, again, kind of going back to what I was saying, you know, at the very beginning, it's like, this isn't forced. This is stuff that they are passionate about, and you can immediately pick up on that. And so, like, when I say that for me, it's not like a super interest, it's not because of lack of skill or lack of passion or ability. It's literally the medium is just not my cup of tea. Yeah, that's fine. This episode in particular is there's a lot of almost slapstick to it.
Yes.
And it's a nice break from some of the heavy stuff that they have told in their normal story. Matt does a really good job of creating an immense amount of personal conflict within each character, making them choose hard choices, making them suffer through things. Like in the normal campaign that they're doing right now, Ashley Johnson's character, Yasha, is a barbarian who has had struggles with not only her own personal rage, but also somebody took control of her for a while. Like, literally, she had no ability to take care of anything, and so she actually kills one of the main characters. Luckily, they had the revive spell and the materials for it later, but she, while crying, knowing full well what she's doing but unable to stop herself, stabs one of the other characters to the heart, and it happens to be her love interest, possibly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
So Matt does a really good job of doing the drama as well as letting them do slapstick and beat each other up for fun. And
Oh my god,
the silliness.
That was the other thing. That was like, there's a lot of references to previous, like, because it's a spinoff of the main campaign, and I think that was like the first argument, like air quote fight, was the initiation process. And like, I think it was Sam. I think Tyrion is the one. He's like, and I learned this from my good friends at Vox. And Laura leans back and looks, because Laura is married to Travis, and Marisha is married to Matt. But Laura leans back and like throws daggers at Liam and Travis, and like, this is your fault.
You did this. Yep. Interestingly enough, I would say, as far as the people who shine in this one shot, you mentioned Macaroni. You've also messaged me lots about Owlbear.
Oh my god. Like, it's just, he does such a good job with it. Like, it's just, I also do have to give a huge shout out to his multiple pages of puns and one-liners that he went through. Like, he's like, there was one situation where he looked, everyone was like kind of looking at him. He's like, I don't have one for this. Like, I wasn't prepared for this situation. Yeah.
Would you say those were your two favorite of the
characters? I would say, like,
or Buddy up there?
Buddy and Macaroni were my favorite, but Owlbear was definitely very close behind. Like, and Buddy, just simply because, oh my god, like, of all the characters, like, he was the only one that I like. Matt himself actually was like, you could tell Matt felt bad beating up on him. Like, he's like, and he made a comment. He's like, he took Sentinel. He knew what this was going to do to him, but like, you could, like, there was a couple minutes where he's like, and I attack Buddy, like, and everyone's like, oh,
well. Liam was also Buddy, for
he
people listening. Buddy,
too.
yeah, Liam played an ogre fighter with Sentinel,
who couldn't see.
He was blind as a freaking bat. But Tyrion gave him goggles that made, like, Coke bottle goggles that made his eyes huge.
They were goggles of eagle sight, I believe.
Yes,
it was mentioned.
Oh my goodness, it's just funny watching Liam. Liam's just hamming it up, and like, think of the guy,
pretty lady
from he reminds me of, oh gosh, what's the name of the movie where they fall into the cave and there's a is it One Eye Willie? Oh god,
I'm not sure.
Oh my god, Goonies.
Okay,
the Goonies
yeah.
guy.
Okay.
Liam's character kind of reminds me of the guy from Goonies, that kind of the misshapen gentleman.
Sloth.
Yeah. Just in that same, little bit of that same mentality.
I can totally see that. I totally, But like, and also part of the reason that those two were like my favorite was because they made no qualms about the fact that they were literally there to just be a thorn in Matt's side the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and that type of stuff just cracks me up, because you could tell, like, and Matt did such a good job, like, staying, for the most part, professional.
Yeah.
About it. But, like, you could tell there was, like, I just wanted to, like, I think it was the Quack Thulu where Macaroni kept rolling the strength saving check.
Oh yeah,
it's Matt finally, he's like, I have pages of cool stuff that this thing could do, and all of you keep making the saves.
Yep. I mean, there's moments where the team will roll really, really well there, right? Like Macaroni,
except for Ashley. She doesn't have a good D20. It is pretty though.
It's funny. It's always character based, it seems, and it comes and goes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, like I don't even know what I would classify her character as. She was a Brooklyn kid, essentially. It was the meme that she was going after.
She was
like a mobster.
Yeah. Damien.
But as far as the character class, she played kind of a ranger rogue style character, like very up and close, dealing with knives, flame knives, and stuff like that. But
she was technically a fighter.
Okay.
Because she had she had the ability, like fighters get insane abilities, but
Sure.
they
Action Surge. She had action.
Yeah, Action Surge was the big one that she kept using.
But I would say for this one shot, her character was much more animated than what she's played in the past or current.
Okay.
The first campaign, she played a cleric who was very, very much so what you would identify as a cleric, like very good, very, very kind of cleric paladin character, Joan of Arc-esque, very quiet. This current campaign, she's a barbarian, but she's also very quiet and unsure and much more subtle.
She was the one that played Pike, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Originally. Yeah, she was Pike and she's Yasha. Laura, I think this is a weaker character for her as well compared to some of her others, because she played Vexalia in the first campaign, which was the sultry take no from anyone.
And she would was it Sam that played, because she played Vex and Sam played Vax?
Nope, Liam played Vax.
Liam played Vax, okay.
Yeah, Liam was the rogue from the first campaign, and Vaxeldon, he challenged a demigod kind of character, and it was kind of Marisha's fault, because Marisha said, we're practically gods at the end of the campaign.
Oh, no.
And Liam, with his ego as the character, took up a challenge from a character named Artagan, who is a Fey creature who has been kicked out of the Feywild and is in the world of Exandria, and allows Artagan to strangle him to death on this whim. Like, they've got some weird things that they've done.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, there are some loud characters, there's some subtle characters. This one's not so subtle. This one shot.
No, this, yeah, but I mean, I think that I kind of, again, like anyone who's tabletop before, yeah, one shots don't tend to be the like slow burn characters. Like I mean, because I think even at this one, I think they started at level, I think they basically played level 10 characters.
They did.
So it was like, you know, at this point, as adventurers and everything, they were already story-wise established too.
Yeah, at least within how the character would be
correct,
comfortable with themselves.
Right. Yeah, no, I think, like, I do find it interesting how, well, I mean, again, coming from a tabletop thing, like how they match it into the existing campaign that they're playing. Because I think the first campaign and the current campaign that they're playing, they're the same world, right?
They're the same world that Matt created called Exandria. They are on different continents, but the events of the first campaign take place like 10 years prior to the second campaign.
Okay.
So there are aspects that Matt will weave into the second campaign that are resolutions, random resolutions from the first campaign, like Marisha's character, Keyleth, from the first campaign. It was this druid character loses her mother. Like, her mother becomes lost and she's never really found. Well, in the second campaign, Matt finished that story and closed it and had Keyleth's mom go back to Keyleth, but it was weaved within the story of the Mighty Nine primarily. Like, the Mighty Nine helped get Keyleth's mom back to her.
And the Mighty Nine is their current adventuring party? Okay. Because I know, so the first campaign was Vox
Machina.
Right. Machina. Right. Okay. And then cool.
So yeah, Vox Machina is the first campaign. When they started recording for Geek and Sundry, they were already a ways into their campain.
Yes,
and
I think that was when they transitioned to 5th edition, is my understanding. And I did not know this, but I was talking to my brother-in-law before we got on comms here. And he was telling me that Matt is actually pretty much responsible for the gunslinger class in 5th edition.
And Blood Hunter. It's just
Okay.
a fairly new class as well. He helped develop the Blood Hunter. He developed the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger was a character that Taliesin played in the first campaign. It was kind of Artificer-like.
Okay.
There were specialty rules based on...
The Pathfinder, right?
Kind of, yeah. That 3.5 era.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No.
But
I find Pathfinder's story or Pathfinder's arc hilarious because of personal reasons, but
yeah,
Pathfinder was born out of the hatred for 3.5 and fell into the same trap.
Yep.
It's like, guess what, guys? If you're around for a long time, things happen.
Blood Hunter's another interesting one. It's blood magic based, so you often take damage to activate certain powers and certain perks on your weapons and whatnot. But that's another class I know Matt had a high amount of development time with. He's also released an entire book, not a dungeon master guide, but a guide to Wildmount, which is the location of the current campaign. I own it. It is amazing to read. It's fun because it gives you the history of the world, the political history, all of the stuff that you would need for a setting. And I know he's consulted on quite a few other books as well.
Yeah, that's because I didn't know that about, but I knew that he had homebrewed. Like, I remember when they first moved over, they switched from, I remember them talk, because that was when we were looking at Pathfinder, and I was like, because I'm a big 3.5 fan. Just be fairly honest.
That's fair. You like min-maxing. You like controlling
I do.
Every
Like,
little thing. Like,
I grew up.
That's fine.
No, I mean, like, I grew up playing AD&D, so like, to me, that world makes 100%. I completely understand it. I also recognize why no one like. Yeah. Oh no. Believe me. I've played enough broken characters that I understand the downside to it.
Right.
But like, so like when I first was introduced to Critical Role, that was kind of like the way they introduced it was they're like, oh well, they used to play Pathfinder and now they're playing 5th edition, and I was like, that's a weird transition because I at the time 5th edition was brand new basically.
5th edition was 5th edition is a good way to.
It's extremely well done. Like it,
a good way to get people into it without breaking them on how many spells and things they have to learn.
And it
teaches them a lot.
Light years ahead of what 4th edition was. Which
and I have 4E, and 4E it was hard to run. I DM'd 4E.
I can't. I think I picked up one book and I was like, oh, the artwork's pretty. That's the only bit. That's like the only positive thing I can say about 4E. Like they. Yeah. Anyways, so like we were looking at doing a campaign in 5th edition, and I was like, I had no interest because of the whole debacle of 4th edition. So they used Critical Role to show like, no, they actually fixed a lot of that. But I remember them talking about, oh well, this is a gunslinger. I'm like, that doesn't exist. Like that. I mean, it did.
It did not at the time, really. Yeah.
And so that's when I found out that Matt was doing all these homebrew stuff, and I was like, oh, okay. So that's actually one of the things that I actually was paying attention to them back at when I was first introduced to them, because that was from a DM standpoint. I was looking at how they were doing homebrew conversions and stuff, and I mean, Matt does amazing work with that.
Yeah, he has a really good conception of the balance of what things would need within the game to make that class stand out but not be broken. And like one of the things that Percy had to roll for is a backfire effect. He had to roll, if he used his weapon, he had to roll a backfire effect, and if he rolled a certain number, it would actually do damage to him too. So that was like
that
one
makes
of
sense.
The trade-offs that could happen. But Matt does not just homebrewing a character type, but he also homebrews a lot of items in their campaigns.
Okay.
One item in particular, I don't know if this is an actual D&D item. I've never heard of it before, but the Dust of Deliciousness. It's a charming effect. thing that if you sprinkle it on food, it makes it delicious, and you have to make a wisdom saving throw, I believe is what it was.
The possibilities of shenanigans on that.
But it was something they picked up really early in the campaign, like maybe episode 5. And Laura uses it in like episode 80 to actually break a curse against one of the other characters. Like, she manages to pull this off, and it is one of the most epic moments. But you get these tools, and Matt just sets you up with these weird items that are so specific to a particular like thing, like food, or some things just they're one-use items, spells, things like that you would have to be in a very unique situation to utilize it, but it allows the characters and the players to come up with creative solutions for these problems with these random, like they had fireworks for a real long time, ball bearings for a real long time. They would set them off constantly, the freaking fireworks. Marisha's character loved just all over the place.
Well, because that was Trinket was also the what was that Vex's? Wasn't Trinket the bear or whatever?
Sprinkle, maybe? No,
Trinket was the big bear.
She has Sprinkle is her ferret in the second campaign.
Okay, yeah.
She loves pets.
Which that doesn't surprise me, but like I just remember them doing like crazy stuff with the just giant bear where they had to like coax Trinket to do certain things because it's like it's a bear, it doesn't want to fly, and they're like, but we can't let him die.
There's all sorts of shenanigans that they come up with. Do you think this episode is a good standalone to give you an idea of how Crit Roll would go?
I think so. I think it also does. I'm not sure what. Well, it takes place after the after the first campaign. I don't know. Does it take? Is it? But it's before the second campaign started. I don't know when they recorded
chronologically.
It. Well, chronologically, I'm not sure where it stands either. I know it takes place after the first campaign. It takes
place while they're recording the second campaign.
Okay. So I think like for that piece, it definitely shows how far they've come. Like I think, Critical, and I know we've had this conversation a lot with Critical Role because it's like it's such a difficult question. If someone wants to get into Critical Role, where do you start? It's like, I know like a lot of people are like, you got to start from the beginning. That's the dumbest idea in the world. Yeah, because you'll never catch up. Just let's call a spade a spade. You're not going to catch up.
Even that, you have to also think when they first started recording for Geek and Sundry, there was so many audio issues. There were issues with lighting. They were recording from home. Yeah.
I remember they used to do like the format of the like actual how they sit is changed completely. Because like it used to be this really awkward because they had the studio recording the studio that they recorded in was not really designed for them, right? And so they had this awkward setup, and then I can't remember, but I remember coming to because my wife loves watching this, and I remember walking into the room one time when they were doing. I don't think it was really recent, but it was like a year or so into it, and they had already changed everything, and I was like, that makes a lot more sense, like because the camera they had actually like dedicated cameras to different things. I was like, this makes so much more sense, and their layout, their stream was smoother. Like, I mean, and they've come so far.
They've gotten better, and they have a new setup even now for COVID. They actually sit 6 feet away from each other in their own personalized tables for these recording sessions, and they all have individual cameras. For much of campaign 2, they still set in a like you're on one side of the table with like 3 people, and there's 4 people on the other side of the table, and they have a special made table that is more like a kind of a diamond shape that allows for the game mat to be in the center, but the crew to be in more of a V formation. So cameras and being able to look at each other and whatnot it's a little bit easier.
just from like an overlay standpoint of their streams too, they have come light years. The one thing I would caution people who are going to, or who are interested in watching this particular one, it's 4.5 hours, so just take it in chunks. It's also a live recording, and it's not a live recording like live stream. Like, they are literally on a stage and they're recording it from like the back of the ground floor. So like the pieces that were like kind of frustrating was there were a couple times where people would stand up in front of the camera. But it's not like that has nothing to do with their presentation, but it's it is a live recording on a stage, and that is a tough thing in general. I mean, like I was impressed that they pulled it off, first off, because that's it's one thing to do a live stream where you're in a room with camera people running around. It's a whole different game when you go out onto a stage, and I think there was like 1,500, 2,000 people there. So, like, it was a ridiculously sized crowd. It was 3 tiers of packed people. And that's amazing too.
And it's one of those things. These are all actors, as are
right. Fair.
Some of the ones from Acquisitions Incorporated. Like Will Wheaton was on there for quite a long time with Acquisitions Inc. But the crew themselves, they have a lot of stage presence and acting, and some of them have done theater in the past. But as far as where to start, the big rule of thumb that I've heard is that if you are truly wanting to start near the beginning, start around episode 28 in the first campaign, because that's where they get all the audio issues pretty much cleaned up. And then if you are like me, I started with campaign 2 just from the beginning there. And something to remember when you're starting any D&D campaign, if you've never played D&D or watched D&D, is characters are often very one-dimensional when you first start playing. They don't have a lot of story depth. They have very basic concepts that they're dealing with. And so the acting is it's not one-dimensional acting, but it's they don't know who they are yet. And so you get to watch them develop their characters. And the fun thing with Critical Role, and I've actually shared this with a few people, is that they do a really good job of, in improvisation, you don't want to say no. You say yes. And so they will assign certain things to each other as a canon aspect to each other through this improvisation. Marisha is really probably the most notorious for like assigning different things to different characters, being afraid of certain things. I don't remember if the goblin character in the second campaign was initially afraid of water, but very soon was assigned to be afraid of water thanks to Marisha. But it turned into a really dark, cool part of her backstory that you find out later on as to why she's afraid of it.
Huh. Okay. That's a cool way of doing like co-creating a story too. And I think that's 100% accurate, because not only are they getting to know their character, they're actually getting to know the character, like actually the character sheet, because a lot of them are probably playing different classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of learning curve, but it's really, Matt is very patient with them and knows the classes inside and out and helps them with them often, which is nice. But if you were to pitch this to anybody, how would you pitch it for this particular episode?
This particular one, this is literally like taking an actual tabletop game and putting it on a stage. Like, I mean, if you want to see, like, for people who don't know what that means, if you want to see what that means, this is a great representation. For people who know what that means, it's just as hilarious and just as funny as you're probably remembering. Like, this is the best of tabletop. These are the best aspects of tabletop in a 4.5 hour segment. And I really, like, that's one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much, was because of the memories that it actually brought up from my own, years of playing this, not 5th edition, but years of playing D&D and doing all the just stupid shenanigans that you can only come up with in the moment of doing stuff with other people. There's the constant, like, badgering each other and picking on each other and double dog daring each other to do this, who can do the stupidest thing and get away with it, who wants to do this thing and try to look the coolest. You know, there's that constant competition going on between all the characters. They nailed it 100%.
Yeah.
This is a tabletop game of D&D put on stage with people who have experience acting and are really good at doing voices. So it's even better because you have that additional aspect to it.
You know what's funny though is even some of their characters, they're really good at doing voices, but sometimes they choose voices that they're not very good at. A spoiler for a character in the second campaign, it's not actually a spoiler. He's one of the initial characters in the first campaign. He tries to do this Irish accent and he can't. Like he just flies in and out of it constantly. And there's actually moments in this one shot where they tease him for it because Laura does an Irish.
Oh my gosh!
accent.
Is that what that was coming?
That's
is that what
was
that's
about?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because Taliesin is terrible at doing Irish.
Oh my gosh!
And
Marisha is doing the Irish accent. Of,
no,
because it's the bard.
Marisha is doing the Trans-Pacific accent.
Yeah, she's doing the
Transatlantic accent. The old-time radio voice.
The adding of syllables.
Yeah, she's... God,
Travis calls her out on that. He's like, what did you just say?
Yeah. She's also not that experienced with accents. But, she does a really good job with the bard. The best part is when she casts spells and she doesn't understand them. And Sam is sitting next to her and going, no, don't do that. Color spray
and thunderclap. They're very specific.
Oh, the thunderclap moment was, I just love that because it caused all the animals to disappear.
Which then came back a bit. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean though, is that is the tabletop aspect that they just capture perfectly. Mm-hmm. And really that's how I would sell this, is like, this is the best aspects of D&D. Like, this is what I remember when I remember the fun that we had tabletop gaming. This is what it was. That entire attitude, that entire just the general friendly competition among the players and, against the DM, but the DM, like, they're all helping each other, but they're all trying to one up each other in a friendly way. 100% captured there. Yeah,
absolutely. If you guys want to watch Critical Role, if you just want to stop in and see kind of what phenomenon it's become, it's really easy to find because on Thursday night it is almost always the top of the Twitch platform because there's generally lately over 47,000 people watching them on Thursday nights, and I believe it starts at 8 p.m. Mountain, so that would be 7 p.m. Pacific is when their streams normally start, and they do last a while, but they are pretty entertaining, and I like to have them on while I'm working on other things or even just watching them. It's a good way to spend Thursday nights, at least for me. But do you have any final says on
I think
group?
I think this is definitely a good snapshot of what you're getting yourself into with Critical Role.
Oh yeah, the Darrington Brigade is what the episode is called. But again, still don't have an outro, have no idea, but you can try to resist this.